Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero at the back. Heung, Min, Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause...
Fine.
Hello? Oh, can I hear you now?
There we go.
There we go.
I was so confused.
I don't know what went on there. But hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. We'll start again. Darren, it's amazing to have you on the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for asking me. That's great.
I don't know what happened there.
I really don't know.
I thought it was my end. I was so confused. I was like, oh no, please. I was like scrambling to try and find
Oh dear, never mind. We're all here in good spirits. Obviously, we've got a win to talk about. So, Darren, it's great to have you on the show. Like I say, it's amazing. And we're also joined by George. George, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Very good. Definitely after a win as well. So I'm excited to let's get into it.
Yeah, no, it should be good. Obviously, this show is sponsored by Tabletop. Make sure you go check them all out. If you want your Pokemon games, board games, go check them out in the link in the description. But hey ho, let's crack on with it. We've got 4 goals to go over tonight, Darren. But first of all, what did you make of that game?
Well, apart from a nervy first sort of 10 minutes, I thought we pretty much dominated them. I mean, it could have been they had a goal disallowed for offside. They hit the crossbar with that ridiculous header. I thought he was their best player. What's his name? Not Delap. Is it Delap?
He plays up top.
Yeah, I thought he was like a one-man team for them. He was great. But apart from the first 10 minutes, I thought once we settled and the squeaky bum time was over with, I thought we were pretty dominant. It was great. And to win away, especially retribution for what they did to us, I thought was fantastic. Great to have our players back, strength in depth. We can now bring on first-team players instead of academy players and youth players. So it's I don't want to say, here we go, but it all bodes well. Once we start getting some players back off the injury table, happy days.
100%. I think it was just a good vibe, wasn't it, George? Because obviously, like Darren said, the revenge kind of fixture, we definitely put all of those kind of gremlins to bed.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well with the Leicester game a few weeks ago when people were, not happy about that loss, I think a few people I was speaking to were a little bit worried it was going to be a similar situation. Like we can't let Ipswich like the double us, surely. And I know our record against them way back when they were back in the Prem wasn't great. So obviously a little bit of nerves from people going into it. But yeah, it felt good having like Darren just said, they're having some players back, getting the goals in, a couple of goals in the first half, just really sort of settled those nerves a bit. And for me as well, I think Gray got like a really early test with Delap. Like, he was really strong, kind of put him to work, to be honest with you. And I think he handled himself really, really well to sort of not shy away from wanting to challenge him again and try and do better. And he did that for the rest of the game. I think, especially second half, I don't think Delap really had a chance at all. So, no, I think we definitely grew into that from the early sort of mishaps. But yeah, very happy to see 4 goals and back to winning ways again.
Oh, yes. And I think that's the thing as well, because we had to really weather that storm in the first 10 minutes. I don't know about you. I was kind of nervous about it. I was like, because if the Lap gets one here, away from home, the fact that Ipswich would beat us already at our own gaff, I was kind of a bit nervous. But luckily we managed to weather it, didn't we?
Absolutely. And I thought that even though he wasn't responsible for the goal, but the player went round Gray, I didn't think positionally he was all that bad, actually. I think he did if someone's running at you, it's going to be hard to get, especially if he's in the box, which he was, to get a tackle in. But I thought positionally, I don't think he did that much wrong. And I think he's very mature, isn't he? Like, he's a big presence. I've seen him in the huddle shouting and screaming at all our players, to like G him up. And I thought we're very, very lucky to have him. I mean, all right, he's there because of, our injuries at the back with Romero and Van der Ven, Dragusin. But he's such a player. He's so mature. And I'm sure we'll talk about Danso later on. But he doesn't go missing, does he? He doesn't sort of shy away. Really up for the fight. He's fantastic. And like I said, he didn't really put a foot wrong, I don't think.
And the thing is as well, he was in kind of motions for that first goal, wasn't he, George? I mean, it was a brilliant ball through to Sonny, wasn't it?
Oh, stunning. I remember like watching it in the moment thinking, hold on, is this Toby Alderweireld reincarnated we've got here now? But no, I think that, look, and it's twice as well in that game that we actually managed to get a goal from a long ball from defence, because Danso got it for when Scarlett flicked it on to Kulusevski. So it's nice to have just a different way of getting the goals. And I think, to be honest, the players coming back made a massive difference for that as well. You've got, Johnson doing Johnson things, tapping it in the right areas. But listen, we missed it. He's top goal scorer for a reason. Even just having Maddison more available the last couple of games, I think really shows something different for our midfield, because in that sort of patch where we were missing a lot of the players, to me, it felt like we were just this sort of one-trick pony where the midfield, because they weren't necessarily the creative types, whenever it was like Basuma, Sarr, Bergvall, Bentancur, like some sort of combination, it just meant like we just kept on passing the ball out wide, back across again. There wasn't really any sort of creativity involved. Whereas you can see now, especially with Maddison coming back in, some beautiful balls through the middle. Even like we said at the back with the likes of Danso and Gray knocking balls over the top for Sonny to run into. I thought he had a much, much better game than we've seen in recent times as well. So, I don't know, things just seem to click a lot better after this first 10 minutes. And we seem to score in different ways throughout the match, not just the same old thing over and over again. So, very pleased.
And obviously sticking with Sonny, because obviously he has had a lot of criticism of late. And to be fair, I think to an extent, it was kind of worth that kind of criticism, because, Darren, I think it shows if he has a longer rest, we get the best out of Sonny. And I don't think we've managed to be able to manage his game time to the best of our ability because we don't have those players available.
Absolutely. And, you've got to remember, he's 31 now. He's getting on. He's not on his last legs, but he's certainly up there. And, asking him to play 90 minutes, 2-3 times a week, it's just not viable. He can't run around that anymore. Maybe you get 60, 70 minutes, and then subbed off. But like he was saying, his confidence was, but I mean, you talk about Johnson doing Johnson things. It was Sonny doing Sonny things. It was unbelievable. And because he's right-footed and left-footed, you don't know where he's going to go. We'll come on to Kulusevski's goal, and I've got an opinion about that, which I'll show you later. But because Sonny's two-footed, you don't know whether he's going to cut inside, go wide. Look at me as if I'm a fucking footballer. So he's got the option, and players just don't know what he's going to do. He's so unpredictable. But today we saw, him back at his best, running at defenders on the left-hand side, Sod putting him through the middle. That he tried that didn't work out. Get him on the left where he can run at defenders, and it was an absolute pleasure to watch. It was brilliant. Yeah.
It really was. And the fact that he had Godfrey on toast as well, George. And I think, obviously, like we say, we need to be able to manage his time better. And I think that will come with the likes of Wilson Odobert kind of coming back. But I want to move to Johnson, because obviously, like you've already alluded to, he is a bit of a tapping merchant at the moment. But got to be right place, right time, haven't you?
No, exactly. Look, and I think it's like, to me, it's fair to criticise certain things in certain games, because not every match works the same. You're not going to always necessarily have those moments where you can arrive at the back post. Sometimes other teams sit really deep and you need a winger that takes, is able to go inside and out like Sonny did, which I think a lot of the times we've noticed that Johnson isn't necessarily the best at. The likes of Moore, Odobert, they seem a little bit more well-equipped to shimmying the defender and trying to go round the outside, pull it across. But in a game like that against Ipswich, I think it was great to see him, back in the full swing of things. He does what he does best. And like you say, you can't discredit the fact that he is always in the right positions at the right times. That is a skill to have. Otherwise, any professional footballer will be able to do what he's been doing. And you see that that's not the case with a lot of the players. So, no, definitely credit where credit's due with Johnson. He had a great game again, especially as his first start back from being out for for a few weeks. And long may it continue. But I think it's good to just have different profiles of players that can do different things on the pitch, because like I was saying before, you can kind of become a one-trick pony if you just have the one move that you're doing over and over again. It becomes a bit predictable. It was nice to have options in terms of how we were getting the goals.
Definitely. And I think that's kind of, we talk about how the fact that Andrew's one-dimensional, but Darren, when you've got the players that do different things, then you actually really see what Andrew's plan kind of is going forward.
When George alluded to it, and I'm glad you picked up on this, George, when Ange first came in and he was getting absolute hammered, all right, we went through a good spell, but I was worried that we'd be found out. I thought we'd be tippy-tappy. And he said, it was other thing, we've got one way of playing, that's, you like it, you don't like, and sort of, so don't go there. So, and I thought we'd get found out, and I'm really pleased that he's being less belligerent. I love the balls over the top, Gray's ball to Sonny, Danso's ball. I love that because, I'm not saying you have to be like Wimbledon in the 80s where you're just hoofing it all the time, but you play a nice calculated long ball, you take out the whole of their midfield. And I don't know whether that is a directive. I don't know what you two think. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Whether Ange is saying use this as a tactic, but we're playing differently now. We're not tippy tapping it. We haven't, and I'm going to touch wood when I say this because I don't want to revert back. But we're not doing that horrible squeaky bum passing it left and right in our 6-yard box nonsense, and I think that's a really lovely option that we've got, and I was really pleased to see that the first 2 goals came from that killer pass. Really good.
Oh, George,
I
don't know what's going on tonight.
I wonder what that's.
I don't know. I think it knows that I'm going to move streaming provider, so it's having a bit of a.
Oh, right.
Oh, George sorts that out. I think to question, obviously, go back to what you said, Darren, in terms of actually now playing the long balls, etc. I feel like you're right. I feel like maybe Angie's kind of sitting back and thinking, actually, that killer ball is doing us in. Why don't we try it a few times? Because there's been a few times in games where our midfield's been completely bypassed by one killer ball. And I don't know whether, like you say, do you reckon Angie's kind of picked on that and decided to revert it?
I don't know. Maybe he's not as belligerent and as stubborn as we first thought. I mean, because this whole ethos about, we're going to play one way, we're going to play Spurs way. Maybe if he logs out and logs back into the studio, George, I don't know, that'll maybe he is being less belligerent, and he is. I don't know whether. Listen, he's done it all over the world. He's got one way of playing. It's Ange ball, So, but I certainly love this. I certainly, it's less nervy for us. And like you say, it negates the whole of the midfield. And when you've got runners, like Spence and Udogie and Kulusevski, people that can run at defenders, it's a really lovely option to have when you're passing a long ball to them.
Definitely.
Hopefully all clear now. Okay. Don't know what's going on. I think what were we saying before about the instructions from like Ange. I think for me it seems like, and he said it at the big, like literally when he first joined Spurs about the whole my way is like the one way type thing. To me it seemed like, because obviously this is a project and we're treating it, and you can see the club are clearly backing it, because let's be real, there have been ample times where they could have sacked him and moved on to someone else like they have done in the past. But you can see they're buying into the project. And I think for me, he's just trying to drill something in at a time. And he said it last year as well about how, when everyone was having a go about the set pieces, like, why are you not focusing on that? Whereas I think he's just trying to drill one thing at a time. Last year it was, okay, inverted fullbacks. This is how we press. This is how we play. Let's focus on that. And I think it was just, he started to add the nuances towards this season. I mean, we were better at set pieces at the start of the season. I think we only conceded against Villa and Arsenal, I believe, and we were actually doing better from corners as well. So I think over time, he is just adding little bits once we do nail playing certain ways. And I think, to be fair, I think the injuries have probably accelerated that, because at the end of the day, we can't play this super front-footed football when we've only got 11 players to rely on every 3 days. So I think that sort of accelerated the whole trying different ways of getting goals. And I think it worked really well that we were able to do the long ball. But again, like we're saying, it doesn't mean that you have to do that all the time. It means you can still press as well. It just also means that if you're inviting pressure from the opposition, you can do different things. Sometimes pass it out, draw them in. Next one, go long, because they're expecting you to pass it around. And I think over time, he will add more and more things as the team sort of nail other parts of the tactics, is sort of what I see.
No, it's a good point. And obviously, talking about players nailing positions and playing really well, I want to talk about Spence, because we finally got to see him in his natural position, didn't we, Darren? What have you made of Spence in this game and his previous performances?
I was so upset when we got it's under Conte that we got in, didn't we, from Leeds? And I think he made an appearance, and I thought, oh, this guy's got talent. And then we never saw from him again. And then all the rumours went round about he's got an attitude problem and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't see him. And I'm so pleased because he's properly working. What a talent he is. How old is he? Remind me.
I think he's only like 22, 23. He's still young.
23. So he's a young guy. He looks big. He looks like he's put on a bit of weight in the gym. He's a presence. He loves to defend. He loves to run. I think he's great, and he really bodes well for the future. You know, he'll come inside. The only thing is that, and I worry about this with the sort of this inverted fullback thing, is that when you do come in, you're going to leave space behind. That's the only sort of not issue, but concern that I've got, because he does like to come in like a doggy likes to come in. But he's great, you know, and he got his goal, as they say, and he was fantastic. Yeah, a real workhorse as well. And like Danso and Gray, as we've said, he's not afraid of showing himself. He's not afraid of getting stuck in. You know, he doesn't go missing. He doesn't hide. He's brilliant.
And I think that's it's hard to kind of compare him with Pedro Porro, because we know Porro's played so many minutes, and we've seen his performances dip and dip and dip because he's so knackered. But it's so nice, George, to obviously see someone like Spence can go and attack the ball forward, obviously score a goal, but can also defend really, really well.
Yeah, massively. And I think a lot of the criticism towards Porro is a bit unwarranted, because I think it's a lot of short-sightedness. I think at the start of the season, I think Porro was actually one of our better players, and he played every minute of every game. I think the issue, again, is probably more of a question tactically, in the sense, like you were saying about the whole inverting going forward. I think we probably just need to do a better job of, maybe the midfielder has to cover that player a bit better. Or, I mean, when Van der Ven's available, it doesn't matter how far Dogi could go forward, because Van der Ven was always there to cover. Whereas what we saw with Porro is that he basically had to play with Dragoshin week in, week out next to him. And we heard from the Gakpo interview after the Liverpool 6-3 game that he said that they were, was it Gakpo? I think it might be Gravenberch. They said they were targeting Dragoshin and targeting that side. So when Porro does go forward, he is left exposed. So I think there might have just had to be little tweaks there. But like you said, with Spence, seems to have the whole package. He was going forward a lot. He locked up Salah three times, which is mental. No one's been able to do that this year against him. And he just seems to be really up for it. Like you say, proper athletic build, a top talent. The fact he can do both sides equally as well is huge for us, if I'm being honest. And I think he's got to be the first fullback on the team sheet now, and it's just up to Aaron just to whether he goes left or right.
And I think it's that versatility again that I think sometimes, obviously, we've got Gray, we've got Spence, there's a few other players that can play in different positions. It's quite nice to have that kind of idea of who we're going to play where, which is quite nice, because obviously we haven't really had this luxury in a long time, because we've had so many players injured. But obviously, going back to Spence, obviously the last couple of games, I wrote it down because I'd forget, the last couple of games he's had a few high ratings with 7.5, 8.3, 8.3, 7.5. And the fact is, Darren, he was man of the match again, which just again highlights how good he is. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't think he's got anything to prove at the moment. I think he's done his talking on the pitch, and long may it continue. And you're right, you know, when Porro's absolutely knackered, he's been, you know, at first, not name on the team sheet, but he's been in that right back position for game after game after game. To give him a rest, I'm sure it's, you know, it's when he comes back, he'll then have to fight for his position. And as the cliche goes, you know, when they talk about managers, it's a good problem to have. Sorry, you know, as they all say, you know, so yeah, Spence playing as well as he is, that's a great, you know, it's great. And was going to say something, pick George up about what you were saying about Ange being back, George. I think, from what I can understand, it's because the board and Levy understand how absolutely bum bare and down to our last. So, like, to sack Ange would just be cruel. You know.
Oh yeah, and if they bring in someone else, they're just left with the mess again anyway. So it's just a nightmare to do it. So.
It's no logic, you know. And if you want, I don't know, Ryan Mason, whoever they bring in, they could bring bloody Pep in. And if you got no players, you got no players.
Well,
so,
you're seeing how he's struggling just without Rodri for most of the season and KDB. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get on to the next match, but I was looking before I came on about Haaland, and he's 50-50. They tried to do something with him today, and he didn't feel good. So I don't want to be cruel, but hopefully he doesn't feel good on Wednesday. You know,
it's not being cruel; it's just being realistic, isn't it? No,
there you go.
That's the thing. And like I say, obviously saying how good Spence is, that goal as well. I mean, full credit to Madders, because there was some quick feet in around that box. And George, there's been a few times where obviously Madders has been spoken about, and I've spoken about it on here, but the fact that he needs to be up for a game, the fact that he obviously started on the bench gives him that little bit of like, right, I need to come on and do something. And he did do something for that goal, which was nice.
Oh, definitely. And I think we do have to manage his minutes to a certain extent, because we've seen what's happened at Leicester. We saw what happened with last season. When you overwork him, he will inevitably get injured, and then he will inevitably miss a lot of the season. And then after that, he's recovering from that injury. Is pretty much what the Leicester fans were saying before we signed him, and it happened last year for us. So I can understand some of the criticism towards Ange being like, well, he's our most creative player. Surely he's got to be playing more. But what good is it if he's only available for a third of the season? And I think sometimes to put him on the bench, give him a bit of rest, and come on and change a game is equally as important as starting the game in the first place, because he kind of just brings that whole new tempo in midfield. And like you say, with a quick thinking, quick feet, today that ball off to Spence is something phenomenal. I think he played another ball through to Sonny at one point. And for him to have the fresher legs coming off the bench to do that, I think helps the team out massively as well. So, no, he's a phenomenal player. I just think we always have to be careful with some of these players that are typically injury prone, not to overwork them, like we're seeing with sort of Van der Ven right now.
Definitely. And I think as well, obviously, that midfield has always been up for contention. What is our best midfield? But Darren, I think we all saw at the weekend and previous games is just how good Bergvall is as well.
What a player.
He's 18.
Mental.
He's 18, and it's not just like he's a winger and his one thing is just like to run at people. I mean, you know, again, the tackling, the way he finds space in the middle, and he's always his head's up. He's always looking for a pass. He's always thinking forward. You know, he's great when they press him. You know, he's there for the challenge. He's absolutely phenomenal. And I don't know why I was thinking of someone mentioned Brian Hill today, because he's with Girona and they want to get rid of him or something. And I was thinking about Brian Hill, and he was running around like a blue-ass flyer when we got him. And I thought, oh, this guy's a talent. But he turned out to be, you know, a bit weak, bit ineffective. But with Bergvall, he's just like making his presence felt right in the center of the pitch. And like I say, it's not just his the fact that he again, he's always showing for the ball and he is a talent. He seems to have a really good footballing brain and plays with his head up. You know, he very rarely loses the ball. He very rarely gets the ball taken away from him. And I think, what an exciting... I mean, here's a question for you. Would you put him ahead of Sarr and Basuma?
Well, I think you'd have to right now, if I'm being honest with you. I'm looking at the team sheet and I'm thinking he's got to be one of the first names on, because
absolutely,
it's not like it's just one-off games. He's solidified it for the last 3 months that he's had to play. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah. What a talent.
He is so good. And I think, like I say, I think Sarr's brilliant because of the legs. I think Basuma, George, is just... I think he's edging out of his position, because I feel like every time he plays, he's either got a hot head or he's not really cementing things very well in that middle of the park, is he?
Yeah, do you know what? And I think the whole Basuma situation is gutting to me, to be honest, because when we did sign him, at the time, I was genuinely gobsmacked, and especially for it only being like 25 mil. I know he was in his last year of his contract, but that season he had with Brighton leading up to us signing him, I thought he was one of the best midfielders in the league. And he played us off the park at their ground and ours, scored against us as well. I think either in the Cup or in the league. And he is a brilliant midfielder on his day. I just think we have not necessarily utilised him to the best of his ability. When he first came on Conte, obviously notoriously Conte just plays with two midfielders. He just never got a sniff in that team at all. When he was at Brighton, he was always alongside a defensive midfielder. He was the more, quote unquote, like number 8, the ball carrier. He would carry up towards the top end of the pitch. Since Ange's come in, we've sort of used Basuma as that lone defensive midfielder, that number 6. And I just don't think that's his best position at all, which is why I think he's had so many off games, and maybe he's been a bit hot-headed because he's realizing he's got to do all these defensive duties and win the ball back aggressively and what that number 6 commands. And I just don't think that really suits him at all. But like with the likes of Bergwall coming in and shining in that sort of position, and I think it's similar to Bentancur as well. I don't think Bentancur is that quote unquote number 6 player, but he's also having to play in that position. And for me, Bergvall's just been like the standout for all of them on a consistent basis. And like you were saying, Darren, to be 18 years old, there was that one moment at Ipswich when he was just, he had the ball in her own half and he just glided through everyone going across to set up. I think he put Johnson through on the other side, who had his shot blocked. Another one where he started the move back in defence. The ball ended up going to Sonny and he followed it, ran in towards the box, had a shot. All right, it was blocked as well. He does just seem to be able to do everything in midfield, which is what more could you want, especially that.
And his change of direction, like one way and then the other way, and he's looking at he's great. And the way he controls it at his feet, like he's natural.
And it's not even just against I guess, well, not to be disrespectful, but obviously Ipswich and some other teams at other standards. But he was doing it at Liverpool, well, not at Liverpool, but against Liverpool at home when we beat them in the cup. Even in like games like the 6-3 loss, where even though the results didn't go away, you can see talent there in the player and what he is able to do. So he's him and Gray, for me, the fact that they're both 18 years old, they both seem to have that leadership quality about them without necessarily being leaders on the pitch. Such an exciting future for Spurs.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's the thing. It's just nice to see those youngster players coming in and just absolutely hitting the ground running and continually having that consistency. And talking about consistency, Darren, I want to talk about Danso because he has been a breath of fresh air in that back line since he's come in.
Absolutely. He's only played a handful of games for us, but already he's showing himself, and he hasn't even settled into the Premier League. Big, good in the air, again, defensive, block tackles, trying to get the ball off the line, throwing himself at the ball, can carry the ball, can put in a tackle, wants to play it forward. Again, what do you say? It bodes so well for the future. And I would say, for me, definitely gets in over Dragusin. I think already just after 3 games. I think I agree. And again, what a nice headache. Excuse me with the cliches, but what a nice headache for Ange to have. Who does he put in? If Van der Ven and Romero are the first 2, then who does he put in? And for me, it's Danso. I just think he reads the game so well, and he's such a unit. He's great, really good.
He really is. And I think that's the thing as well, because obviously there was talk tonight, George, that potentially Romero could be fit come the game on Wednesday. And then again, like Dan says, that cliche thing, it is a headache to have, because I think we can all agree Danso is levels above Dragusin. He's probably the player we thought Dragusin was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, credit where credit's due. Danso has been brilliant since coming in. It's always like there's always going to be a question marks over those signings sometimes, because it's a player that most people haven't really heard of. It was late in the January window. You kind of wonder, is this a panic buy or whatnot? But listen, he's been brilliant so far. And I think for me as well, in terms of off the ball qualities, he just seems to have the passion and the want to win the ball back. I mean, he was winning tackles and celebrating them, similar to how Porro and Romero do. He was at the end of the game, giving it big to the fans. He seems like a proper good character, which again is something that Ange has said numerous times is such a big factor on the people that he signs. I think Darren's hitting the nail on the head there. He does everything so well, and I think does get ahead of Dragusin at times. I think Dragusin on the ball, he's not so great. He seems a little bit more panicked, whereas I don't really see that from Danso. He seems a lot more calm, and he is 4 years older than him, so maybe he's just had that bit more experience, which again is something I think we've been lacking a bit this season. As amazing as the youngsters have been, we've just constantly had to rely on the youngsters, whereas it's good to sort of bring in a 26-year-old trying to prove himself in the big leagues. So no, it's great. And regards to Romero, I I know we're trying to be super, super careful with them. I'd be surprised if he starts, even if he is supposedly like completely ready. And I think with the confidence that Danso's getting at the moment, playing in that right centre-back spot, I don't really see how you can drop him unless it's a case of playing Danso alongside Romero. But we tried bringing Romero and Van de Ven back quickly against Chelsea, and that did not work out too well for us. And this is a tough opponent to go against. So yeah, I think Danso's definitely staked the claim so far to be in that centre-back position.
100%. And obviously as well, we're going to move on to another player that I think's been Mr. Consistency, even though he's been pretty much put in the ground with the amount of games he's played, and that's Kulusevski, Darren. Again, he's managed to score a goal when I thought he was on his last legs. So what have you made of Decky in that game and obviously the past appearances for him?
Yeah, I mean, consistent. And I'm just reminded what I wanted to say regarding we were talking about Sonny and George alluded to it. What I find amazing about his goal, and by the way, his celebration, it was just out of this world. It really meant the world to him. What I thought was interesting / amusing was that everyone knows he hasn't got a right foot. I mean, if he had a right foot, it'd be lethal. Everyone knows he's going to cut inside because he doesn't go, So what do? You show him the outside and you stop him from cutting in. And I mean, if I was an Ipswich fan, I'd be going, don't let him shoot, don't let him shoot, don't let him shit, because he did exactly what you knew he was going to do. He cut inside and the ball, my God, inside of the post and in. Incredible. Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, I like seeing him in the middle. I do like seeing him in the middle. I thought he was really effective. He doesn't mind getting stuck in that. Is it number 10, that position?
Yeah.
But he was back out on the right and he had a fantastic game. And again, you're talking about you talk about versatility in different positions, and whether he is in the middle or on the right running at defenders, he does a job, and I think he's fantastic. What a leader. And sorry, I've forgotten this. Stephen, as Stephen just said, player of the year for a lot of people, absolute stalwart of the team. That goal was brilliant.
The technique was phenomenal,
incredible.
Thing is, I was in the stands for the game, so I didn't quite appreciate just like the narrow window he had to get that in the goal until I saw the highlights after, and I was genuinely gobsmacked. I know he has that in his locker, but the keeper had a decent bit of the goal covered. He had to really bend it around him and just to nick it on the inside of the post to get it in. Is just the pinpoint accuracy was insane.
Why he was allowed to shoot though? Why he was allowed to do that? I've got no idea. If I was his manager, I'd be going, "What? Do you know what he's going to do? For God's sake!"
Let's just hope he has that space every game, because we would score so many goals if he did.
Absolutely. And he was another one. Talk about last-minute signings. Him and Bentancur from Juventus were the two of them we got together.
Yeah, deadline day.
No one knew who they were, and now look at them.
Maybe that should be our new transfer policy. Just go and get players right when we need them. Obviously, I don't want that to stress me out too much, but it seems to be working at the minute. But obviously, lead up to that goal, George, there was a beautiful header from Mr. Dane Scarlett. He's had 51 minutes playing time, 1 goal and 2 assists. I finally think we are seeing the Dane Scarlett we all hope that he'd live up to be. Yeah,
and it's weird that he's still only 20 years old in a way, because I feel like he has been around for quite a while, like at least like murmurs on the scene, because I'm pretty sure it was under Mourinho, right, where he called him a special young player. I think he must have only been like 16 at the time, 16, 17. And yeah, I mean, look, the loans didn't go too well for him, I don't think. He wasn't really getting the game time. I know he got a couple of goals for Oxford, but I think the main worry is he wasn't playing too much by the end of it. So there's always a little doubt as to like, okay, can he cut it at this level if he's not doing so well on the loans? But look, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Like Harry Kane is the most prime example of that possible. He went on about 3 or 4 loans, I think it was, in the end, and I don't think many of them worked out too well. He was on the bench at Leicester with Vardy at the time, and for him to become one of the best, if not the best striker in the world, just goes to show that sometimes players just blossom at different times. And I think his sort of appearances so far since coming back have been fantastic. And look, obviously, I don't want to go like too negative on someone like Tell, because I do think he struggled in that game. being the striker. I think sometimes when the centre backs are as physical as they are, I think he just kind of struggles with like, the hold up play, because he's not one of those natural number 9s like your Solankis or Delaps. He's not necessarily got that strength to sort of see off a centre back. But there'll be plenty of other games where I think he'll thrive in that position. But it felt good to have that have Scarlett come on and show quite a lot of maturity in that position. And like you say, winning the header, flicking it on for someone who's not really actually that tall for a striker, I thought was really impressive, to be honest. Always seemed to be really comfortable on the ball, wanted to drive at the goalkeeper whenever they passed it back to him. So no, I've been definitely really impressed with his appearances so far, and hopefully it's just the beginning for him to sort of grow and be a proper staple in the team.
And I think it's as well, like, I'm glad you mentioned Tell, George, because Darren, I much prefer him through the middle. I know we alluded to it earlier, than having Sonny through the middle, because I think he does add something. I know in the previous game before Ipswich, there was a couple of times we had quite a lot of shots, they just didn't have enough power behind them, more like P-rollers. But it does show that he's getting in the right spaces at the right time. We just got to give him a little bit of time to settle in.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Again, he's played. I mean, Danso is the exception. He's properly hit the ground running. But with Tell, I mean, he'll get a goal, and hopefully that he'll kick on from there. I'm not massively concerned. He was getting a lot of against United. He was getting a lot of chances. He didn't finish them off, but I mean, he was there or thereabouts. So I'm not massively worried about him. He was in the box. I think Sonny could have passed to him, and he passed to Johnson, who was in acres of space. I mean, he was all standing there all on his own. So, but Tell was there, like you said, in his position, wanted to receive the ball. I'm sure he'll do fine. I think he needs a goal, then he needs a second goal, and hopefully, he can give Solanke a run for his money.
I think that's the thing, because we all do really miss Solanke, because I think there's a lot of other teams in the league that kind of dismiss what Solanke does off the ball, and I think we really miss that when he's not on the pitch. But again, it was great to get 4 goals. Sadly not the clean sheet, but 4-1, it's lovely jubbly, and it lifted us up, obviously, the table. And George, that kind of moves us on, obviously, the big game on Wednesday when we play City. So how are you kind of feeling about this one? I mean, it's at home, so how do you feel about it?
It's just City, isn't it? Usual 3 points every year. So no, look, I think it's so weird going into a game against Manchester City and being weirdly confident, just because we just seem to be their bogey team for whatever reason. Like it's almost like a cruel world for them, that because let's be real, Tottenham get bantered non-stop, but for Man City, this all-encompassing, incredible team that's Centurions, done the treble, this, that, and the other. Little old Tottenham come along and they can't seem to get a win against us. So yeah, it's a strange one. Look, they're in a tough situation this whole season, to be honest, and just come off the back of a loss against Liverpool. They've had one day less rest than us coming into it. Obviously, like you said, we're at home, so it does sort of play into our hands a little bit that we can come away with a good result. What's going to be interesting for me is that we've clearly seen in recent times when we've had to play twice in a week, we do sort of struggle, whether that's because players have been out injured or just everyone's just been running to the ground. So I'm intrigued to see how we respond now after that Ipswich win to the game on Wednesday, to see whether we actually have the legs to sort of see it through. But look, Man City are going through a similar situation and they've got one day less than us. So I think it's really down to us, and it's just nice to have, as we were saying earlier about Maddison coming off the bench. Obviously, I imagine he might start this time around, or maybe Decky gets a rest, or whichever way we decide to play it. It's nice to actually finally have options so that players aren't necessarily getting run into the ground. Like Darren was saying earlier, maybe Porro starts with Spence on the left this time to sort of ease Udogie back into it. Maybe Romero's fit enough to be back on the bench to sort of ease the pressure off of Gray, and so on and so forth. So, no, I'm somewhat weirdly, quietly confident, and just kind of looking forward to another game at home. You know what it's like after a win. You kind of just want Spurs to be back again and hopefully going on the winning ways. 3 wins in a row now. Let's make it 4.
I think so as well, and I think as well it's good what you said in terms of, obviously, City are going through the run of the mill at the moment, and for us, Darren, like I said, to try and get another win, to keep the momentum going, and not to be so predictable. Like, we don't have to play the same players in the position anymore because we've actually got players back.
Absolutely. So City have lost 4 out of their last 6 games. They've won 2, lost 4. there's a chance. Well, Kanji's injured. There's a chance that Haaland may or may not play. He's 50-50. So that would be great if we don't see him on Wednesday. And looking at them yesterday against Liverpool, there's like this weird crisis of how you go from absolutely steamrolling every team that's put in front of you. You know, Arsenal, Liverpool, whoever, they just batter them, sweep them aside. Yesterday, they looked bereft. Some of those passes, like De Bruyne kicking it straight to the opposition. I'm like, this is weird. It's just like we're watching Man U play. I know they're not the same caliber, but seeing Man U just looks so, am I allowed to, what? So shit. I mean, dreadful, you know. Watching City yesterday, just like, this is bizarre. It just didn't look like them. So have we got a chance? Absolutely. I think the crowd are massively important on Wednesday. I've just got a funny feeling that if our support is absolutely up there, I reckon it will carry the team. You know what Spurs fans are like. They may get a goal and we go into our shells and come on, you Spurs, you know. But I reckon if we're up for it and we get a goal, I reckon we could properly do some damage again. It would be amazing. And all right, listen, we are where we are. We're bloody 12th, but you know, it all bodes well because then we got Europe to kick on. You know, we got Altman the next game. So yeah, and it's such a shame that our league form is so crap, isn't it? Because now we got players, you know, back. It would be lovely to go for 6th or 7th or 5th, you know, but we're not. We're just languishing at the moment, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame. It's all too little, too late, you know.
Yeah, it is a bit, but I think it's good that we've got a few opposition coming up now that are sort of like just above us. I think we've got like Fulham soon, Bournemouth soon. So I think those games are going to be quite important to see whether we can make this last ditch, even if it's Conference League sort of position, like last ditch move towards Europe.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing as well, like as much as it's annoying to sit 12th, I also think that obviously coming to you, Darren, for this one, the fact that we have got Europa still to hold on to. Not so much the cups anymore throughout them, but we've still got Europe to hold on to. And I feel like it is the kind of lead up to the be all and end all, I think, for us, especially like say how our league form's dipped off.
Absolutely. And it's shit or bust, isn't it? I mean, he said it himself. I always win something in my second season, mate. And, you know, he's put his money where his mouth is. Let's see if he can do it. You know, let's see if he can do it. We're out of both cups, domestic cups. So what a thing. I mean, you know, we're not there yet. But
touch
I mean,
wood.
Yeah, touch wood. What a thing that would be. Yeah, we've got, you know, we're not completely out of, you know, we've got something to fight for. And like we were saying off air, we were sort of having a little chat. They are 4th in the Eredivisie, with 3rd and 2nd on the same points, 43. AZ Alkmaar we're talking about here. And, you know, we beat them with Richarlison getting a penalty last time. So we can definitely do it again. And all these wins just breeds confidence, you know, and all the players back, like you were saying, George, you know, it bodes well. It really bodes well.
For once, I feel like the stars are aligning, George. And again, I don't want to jinx it, but like I say, the players are coming back. We're obviously into the final stages of this competition. It's got to be the one, surely.
Definitely. Look, I think when it came to like the sort of league phase or group phase, whatever you want to call it, at the start of the season, we were resting quite well, like rotating quite a few players towards the start. And I think now that we're in the knockout phases, it's clearly going to be the first team, like the strongest team possible from now on, which I'm definitely going to be happy about because it just has to be our aim. Like, could you imagine after all the abuse we've received all season, just for him to go and end up winning a European trophy that gets us Champions League anyway? I mean, it's obviously an incredible dream, and I just hope it goes that way. But I'm being completely honest. Like I was looking at the draw and the brackets and the teams that are available, and we have to start as fans. We need to start breeding this confidence that we can do well in this competition, because I think the moment, and I think Andrew was sort of alluding to this last year, especially around the City game and whatnot, but the moment we're not confident, that, like you were saying, Darren, that's going to be around in the stadium, the players are going to feel that, and it's going to be nervy. Whereas I think we need to go into the competition with an open mind that, look, AZ Alkmaar, absolutely we can beat them because we beat them already at home. Let's go and do that again. The next, for the quarters, is either Ajax or Frankfurt. We've done Ajax before. and that was at much higher stakes. Frankfurt, obviously, we don't necessarily know, but they've just lost their best player to Man City in the January window, and then just who knows from then onwards. So I think, as you were saying before as well, Hollie, I think just getting these wins under our belt in the league, even though they're not necessarily amounting to anything in terms of getting Champions League or Europa League, I think it just brings that confidence back in the team that yes, we can win these games. Okay, we've got a rest at the weekend now because we're not in the FA Cup. So after the City game, go all out for that, get another win, and then go again next week against AZ Alkmaar. And I think we can just start hopefully getting the ball rolling and getting these results again to, fingers crossed, end up with quite a good season.
Yeah.
Just going back to the City game, Hollie. So I was just thinking about, he popped into my mind, that Mamouche. He's a good player, isn't he?
Very good player.
If we can keep him quiet and sort of nullify him, that would be a very strong thing to do. I think he's really stepping up.
No, yeah, you're spot on, and maybe he's more of a threat than Haaland. So hopefully we can kind of nullify him. But it'll be interesting, obviously, with all the games left in the season, and obviously this Europa League. And like I say, 17 years ago on today, on the dot, obviously we lifted our last trophy. So hopefully we can kind of rain that down so it's like this year rather than 2008, because that would be nice.
Yeah.
But like I say, another win under our belt, looking ahead, happy days. It's nice to not have a therapy session this week. So we'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. But Darren, it's amazing to have you on the show. Apologies, I don't know what happened tonight. I think they know that I'm potentially leaving streaming provider to go to someone else, and now they're booking me. But no, thank you for having us, coming on, Darren. Where can everybody find you?
Thank you. I'm on Instagram, Darren Altman _VO, because I'm a voiceover artist. So I upload lots of adverts and impressions and stuff that I've done on Instagram. TikTok, I'm just Darren Altman. I upload a load of crap on there as well. Twitter, I'm done with. I haven't been on Twitter for ages. So Instagram and TikTok, that's where you'll find me. And busy voicing stuff. I've got some new... funnily enough, they're not out yet, but I've got some new Sky Sports News sponsorship bumpers where I've played loads of different commentators. They wanted me to do a golf commentator, a football, cricket, all different styles, and it's sponsored by Grosvenor Casino. So if you hear Sky Sports News sponsored by Grosvenor Casino, that's me.
I'll listen out for that now.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing, Darren. Thank you again for coming on. And also, George, thank you as well for coming on to Where Can Everybody Find You doing your thing?
No, of course, anytime. And yeah, the app's there anyway. It's just at George Achillea pretty much on every platform. I think the main bulk of stuff at the moment is over on Instagram, trying to do like cinematics at football games. YouTube's been a bit quiet recently, but we are in the works and planning. Work's just been crazy hectic recently, so I haven't been able to get much uploading, but we will be back with some more videos there. And yeah, pleasure to be back on. Thank you for having me, because as you said, it's just nice to be positive and talk about a win and hopefully look forward to some success at Spurs.
Definitely. And like I say, thank you to everybody else that's tuned in, watched this live, that's going to rewatch this. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Before we go, I was approached by Sands United on LinkedIn that kind of do football matches by bereaved fathers and stuff. I put a link in the description to go check them out, just to give them a little bit of a push. So if you wouldn't mind going checking it out, they're based in Nottinghamshire, Wolverhampton, sorry, Jesus, I can't even get the location right. So go check them out, that would be amazing. And like I say, hopefully next week we'll be back talking about another win, because that would be fantastic. And like always, until next time, I will use Spurs.